Pakistan is hosting the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Council of Heads of Government meeting from the 15th to the 18th of October. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will lead the Indian delegation to Pakistan. Now, this visit, interestingly, will be the first by an Indian External Affairs Minister to Pakistan in 9 years. The last visit was by Sushma Swaraj in 2015. This visit comes nearly a month after Dr. Jaishankar called out Pakistan over cross-border terrorism at the UN General Assembly. He said many countries get left behind due to circumstances beyond their control, but some make conscious choices with disastrous consequences. A premier example is our neighbor Pakistan, he had said. In fact, Dr. Jaishankar has been one of the most vocal critics of Pakistan, and he's often said that talks and terror cannot happen together, and that this is a new government of India. Strictly speaking, this visit by Dr. Jaishankar is not a bilateral one. It is to participate in the SCO hosted by Pakistan this year. But his visit has drawn considerable attention to the strained history between the two countries. And just when it was announced, this visit, there's been a bomb blast in Pakistan that's killed 2 Chinese nationals. The army has been deployed, and there are ongoing clashes in the capital between police and supporters of former Prime Minister Imran Khan. And to add to all of this, there's been a controversy within Pakistan even before he's landed there, where one politician from one of Imran Khan's parties said that his party plans to invite Dr. Jaishankar to join its protests, attracting a backlash. So what does one really expect during the SCO next week? Will Dr. Jaishankar have a one-on-one meeting with the Pakistan Prime Minister? Joining me to discuss this are Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, former Indian Consul General to Karachi, Pakistan. He's the author of Karachi Halwa. Imtiaz Gul, author, senior journalist and executive director of the Center for Research and Security Studies, CRSS, joining us live from Islamabad. And in the studio, here with me is my colleague, Aditya Raj Kaul. Aditya, over to you first. Dr. Jaishankar in Pakistan, is that the news event of the year after what he said at the UN General Assembly about Pakistan?
Well, anything to do with India and Pakistan, the government-to-government dialogue or any visits increases the possibility of media attention.
Yes.
But in this particular case, as you rightly pointed out, there isn't any bilateral meaning to this dialogue.
Right.
In fact, Jaishankar a couple of weeks ago had already said that the era of uninterrupted dialogue is over.
Yeah.
That means until there is decisive action against terrorism,
Yes.
India is not interested to hold any kind of a dialogue. Since
Right.
2019, our policy has been very clear to isolate Pakistan completely,
Yes.
to focus on other priorities and other important international matters.
Right.
That's what New Delhi has done. Now, what is happening in Pakistan? Pakistan is looking towards this international event.
Right.
A few days after it got approved of an IMF loan,
Yes.
a bailout package. And now we are seeing increasing security problems in the run-up to the SCO that is going to happen on
Yes.
15th and 16th. Last night, a little before midnight, there was a massive suicide bombing that happened right outside the Jinnah International Airport in Karachi, in which 2 Chinese nationals, one person from the security, Pakistani security forces, and there were 17 people who were injured. Initially, it was said that it was a Pakistani Air Force tanker that exploded. You know, they did everything possible to say that this was not a security disaster. Then, very interestingly, there's a huge, massive civilian protest that's happening in Islamabad, in D Chowk, in all the important sectors of Islamabad, where the Imran Khan's PTI, its party, and its cadre from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa has been protesting and demanding justice for Imran Khan. Imran Khan's sister was also arrested, and yesterday it's being told in the last 24 to 36 hours, more than 1,000 people have been either arrested or abducted by the Pakistan Army or the intelligence agencies. And lastly, what's happening between Afghanistan and Pakistan? You know, there's a confrontation that's happening, not just at the border, but now Afghanistan is saying that we are closely monitoring what's happening in Pakistan, and we advise the Pakistani government to hold dialogue with the protesters because there is stiff resistance that's happening.
This is the Taliban.
This is the Taliban that's actually talking about Pakistan.
Right.
And it's almost like a US State Department statement saying that we are monitoring the situation very closely and we advise you to have dialogue with the protesters.
You know, things are out of hand, Aditya, when the Taliban start advising dialogue. But Imtiaz Gul Sahab, what are Islamabad's expectations from Dr. Jaishankar's visit to Pakistan. It is not a bilateral visit. We're fully aware of that. It's for a multilateral dialogue on the SCO. But there have been a number of editorials in Pakistan. I was reading the Daily Dawn this morning, which said that there's a possibility there could be a one-on-one with his Pakistani counterparts. Your views on this, Gulshan?
I think Dr. Jaishankar has made it very clear a couple of days ago that this is not a bilateral visit, and I'm just going to attend the SCO conference, and I think the story ends there. The expectations in Pakistan are just of maybe relief after over a decade. An Indian foreign minister will be visiting Pakistan, and I think the implied message and the implied message from India is that it may be then softening its hard stance towards Pakistan a little more, and that the project that I understand Ajit Doval, your national security advisor, had started, that is the punish Pakistan as much as possible. And as Aditya also said, the mission was to isolate Pakistan internationally. So perhaps there is a recalibration, a little recalibration of that mission, and that's why the Indian government then decided to send the foreign minister to Islamabad.
Right. Ambassador Prabhudayal, is there a recalibration in our stance vis-a-vis Pakistan, as Imtiaz Gul was saying that we had this stance of isolating Pakistan internationally for supporting terrorism, but that doesn't seem to have played out well in the last couple of years, and which is why the foreign minister is now traveling to Pakistan, even if it's for a multilateral forum like the SCO.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. I think there is no recalibration whatsoever in our policy towards Pakistan. It has been made abundantly clear that Mr. Jaishankar will be visiting Pakistan only for the SCO summit, and no bilateral talks are planned. Of course, how things evolve remains to be seen, but I may recall that the spokesman of the External Affairs Ministry of India, when he made the announcement of the visit of Mr. Jaishankar to Pakistan, he made it also very clear that Mr. Jaishankar is only going there for the SCO summit. India has repeatedly made it clear that as long as Pakistan retains its policy of sponsoring terrorism against India, there is no question of resuming the bilateral dialogue. In other words, as long as the policy of terror stays, there will be no bilateral dialogue resumed. Now, let me say very categorically that even if the elected government of Pakistan says that it will abandon the policy of sponsoring terrorism, or that it will stop any terrorist activities against India, the fact is that it does not have any say in what actually happens in Pakistan. The reason is that Pakistan is not an elected democracy. It doesn't function like an elected government. Pakistan has a deep state, and that deep state comprises the army and the ISI. They actually call the shots, and it is their policy of sponsoring terrorism against India which continues despite the fact that governments change. In other words, there is a certain degree of permanence to that. I may also mention that the army wants hostility with India. And why is that? Because only when there are hostile relations with India can the army show to the people that it is needed really by them. Otherwise, the civilian government will not be able to handle the situation. The army will have to go back to the barracks if the relationship with India is good. The army doesn't want it. The army enjoys huge perks in Pakistan. For instance, there are defense housing societies which have come up in every city. And who benefits from that? The armed forces. Then there is this Fauji Foundation, which is one of the biggest conglomerate giants of Pakistan, and it is manned by the armed forces people. So, since the army derives so many benefits if it wants to maintain its primacy,
Yes.
for which it has to show that India is an enemy, and for which reason it has to create those conditions which lead to enmity. In other words,
Absolutely.
Ambassador
Prabhudeval, a quick follow-up question to you is that, you know, for the last decade or so, the government has maintained its stance that talks and terror cannot go hand in hand, and Pakistan will have to dismantle the infrastructure of terror. You know, as a former diplomat, what would you say would be proof enough for us to establish the fact that Pakistan is no longer sponsoring terrorism, or it, it is in the process of dismantling infrastructure? Would it be on acting against some of the suspects that we have given them in dossiers in the past? Would it be of shutting down terrorist training camps? Give us a sense of what the end state of this would look like.
You have yourself named some of the very important steps that Pakistan can take. Pakistan has to take concrete action against the terrorists whom we have named, whose dossiers we have given to them, and who are accused of carrying out terrorist activities against India. If Pakistan pretends that, there is no case against these people and that India is just trying to pull a fast one and all that, then certainly things cannot move. Pakistan knows what these people have done because of the fact that the evidence is fully available with the government of Pakistan. If Pakistan takes action, yes. If it locks these people up, yes. If it dismantles these terrorist camps and gives us the concrete evidence, then yes, certainly we will take stock of the new situation.
Thank you, Ambassador Prabhudeval. I'm afraid we're completely out of time, but I'm going to ask Imtiaz Gul one quick question on this. The fact that the Indian government has always asked for a dismantling of the terror infrastructure. Do you see at some point in the future Pakistan agreeing to that, or even taking some kind of confidence building measures, handing over suspects, or pursuing investigations into terror cases which have masterminds in Pakistan? What's your take on this?
Well, I think there are two aspects to it. One deals with the people mentioned in the dossiers, and the other one is, my question is, who is sponsoring terrorism in Pakistan? In the last 48 hours, we have lost one colonel and 16 other military officials, soldiers, as well as almost three Chinese last night. So the question is Pakistan sponsoring terrorism in Kashmir, or vice versa? Is India sponsoring terrorism in Pakistan? If India is not doing this, who is doing this, and why are they doing from Karachi to Kurram to Waziristan to Lahore? So there are 5-6 flashpoints that have emerged in the last 3 days, where Pakistan army has lost more than almost 24 people. So who is doing this? This is my question to you all.
Sandeep,
yes, Aditya, quick closing comments.
Closing comments in Kashmiri, since I'm a Kashmiri. We have a saying.
Yes.
Vavum soy, anyum soy, lejum soy pansi. And that means that you sow as you reap.
Right.
So I wish I could share Imtiaz Saab's optimism on recalibration of Jaishankar towards Pakistan.
Yes.
That is certainly not going to happen for the next decade. I can assure you that. But Pakistan perhaps needs to look inwards towards why they supported Taliban all these years, and the same Taliban is mocking them today.
Yes.
And how they have supported Lashkar-e-Toiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Al-Badr, and all these terror organizations, including Hizbul Mujahideen. And now when we are seeing a new reality in the Kashmir Valley, Pakistan does not know where its foreign policy or the domestic policy is heading. So the solutions are inwards, but it's only time that the politicians and the civil society shows that mirror to the Pakistan army. Until that time, I think security-wise, otherwise, Pakistan is certainly going to implode.
Yeah, it's troubled times ahead for the region as long as terrorists have a free run. But thank you very much for joining us, Imtiaz Gul, Ambassador Prabhudeval, my colleague Aditya Rajkol.